There are moments in life when you feel a gentle nudge inside you, a thought that comes softly, quietly, yet carries a weight your own thinking could never create. It comes in the middle of your struggles, in your silent moments when you're not even praying, and suddenly an idea, a direction, a peaceful knowing enters your mind. Many people overlook this. They call it intuition, they call it a thought, they call it coincidence. But what if I told you that God uses the very mind He designed to communicate with you? God doesn't always speak with thunder. He doesn't always speak with visions or miracles that shake the ground. Many times He speaks through a whisper inside your own thinking, the voice that says, "Don't give up yet," the voice that says, "Try one more time," the voice that says, "Forgive," the voice that says, "Move forward." That voice isn't random. It is purposeful, precise, and perfectly timed. You see, your mind is not just a mental space. It is a spiritual channel. It is where ideas are born, where faith is formed, and where God plants thoughts that guide your destiny. When God wants to shift your life, He often begins by shifting your thinking. When He wants to open a door, He first opens your understanding. When He wants to elevate you, He elevates your mindset. That is why the greatest battles you face are in your mind, because the enemy knows if he can disrupt your thoughts, he can distort your direction. But God's voice is stronger than confusion. His whispers are louder than doubt, and His guidance is more powerful than any fear that tries to sit in your mind. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in your life won't come from external miracles. They will come from internal clarity, from a single thought God places in your heart, from a moment when you suddenly know what to do, from an inner peace that doesn't match your situation. Think about it. Some of the most life-changing decisions you have ever made came from a thought that didn't feel like ordinary thinking. You didn't hear it with your ears. You felt it in your spirit. You sensed it in your mind. That is God pointing you in the right direction. That is God steering you away from danger. That is God reminding you of who you truly are. God speaks through ideas. He speaks through sudden understanding. He speaks through inner peace. He speaks through conviction. He speaks through quiet warnings that save you from wrong paths. He speaks through new visions that push you into purpose. When God wants to strengthen you, He whispers courage into your mind. When He wants to heal you, He whispers hope. When He wants to restore you, He whispers identity. When He wants to lead you, He whispers direction. And when He wants to prepare you for what's coming, He plants a thought so powerful that you cannot ignore it.
But the question is, are you listening?
Because God's voice is often missed, not because He isn't speaking, but because we are too loud on the inside. Worry becomes noise. Fear becomes noise. Stress becomes noise. The opinions of others become noise. The busyness of life becomes noise. And in that noise we assume God is silent, but He is not. His voice is present, but your mind must become still enough to hear it. Sometimes God speaks when you're tired. Sometimes when you're walking alone. Sometimes when you're feeling lost. Sometimes when you're unexpectedly peaceful. And sometimes when you're in the middle of a storm, but a calm thought rises inside you. I will make it. I will get through this. That is God speaking to you through your mind. Train your heart to listen. Train your mind to be quiet. Train your spirit to recognize the difference between your thoughts and God's thoughts. How do you recognize God's voice in your mind? You feel a pull, not a push. You feel peace, not pressure. You feel alignment, not confusion. You feel clarity, not chaos. You feel uplifted, not condemned. His thoughts lift you higher. His thoughts remind you of your worth. His thoughts strengthen your faith. His thoughts point you toward purpose. His thoughts silence fear. His thoughts reflect love. So the next time you get a thought that comforts you, strengthens you, or brings you direction you didn't search for, pause. Don't rush past it. Don't ignore it. Don't call it coincidence. Recognize it, honor it, follow it. Because that may be the moment God is speaking directly into your mind, guiding you into the future He has already prepared for you. Here is the expanded first key point in 800 words, with no subtitle and no conclusion, written in the same uplifting, spiritual David Youngie style you prefer. There is a reason God often chooses to speak in whispers rather than loud, dramatic moments. The human heart is most open in quietness. The mind is most sensitive in stillness, and the spirit is most receptive when the world around you fades into silence. When God wants to guide you, He doesn't need to shake the mountains or split the skies. He simply places a thought inside you that carries a weight your own ideas could never carry, a thought that arrives softly yet feels undeniably intentional, a thought you didn't plan, didn't search for, didn't force. It just appears right when you need it. Many people expect God to speak in the spectacular. They want angels, visions, burning bushes, or moments that feel supernatural. But God often chooses the simple because He designed your mind to hear Him. He created you with a spiritual sensitivity that responds to His whispers more than to noise. And if you look back carefully at your life, you will notice that the most important turning points were triggered not by loud miracles, but by quiet thoughts, a sudden clarity, a peaceful direction, a warning that saved you, an idea that lifted you, a knowing that felt deeper than ordinary thinking. That is why God speaks through your mind, because His voice can travel where no human voice can reach. He can meet you in the middle of your fears. He can speak into the center of your confusion. He can whisper strength into your insecurities. He can plant direction inside your inner chaos. He can guide your steps even when your world feels frozen. His voice does not need the permission of circumstances. It simply flows into your thoughts, aligning you with His purpose. God's whispers have a unique character. They come with gentleness, but they carry authority. They come softly, but they shift your emotions. They come quietly, but they change your whole perspective. When God speaks internally, His words don't feel like pressure. They feel like peace. They don't feel like fear. They feel like clarity. They don't feel like confusion. They feel like confidence. You don't hear them with your ears. You sense them in your spirit, and your mind interprets them. Think about the times when you were on the edge of giving up, and suddenly a sentence appeared in your mind. You can make it. You didn't invent that strength. You didn't create that voice. You were exhausted, empty, and discouraged, and yet a reminder rose inside you with a power your personal motivation could never produce. That was God whispering resilience into your spirit. Or consider the moments when you felt lost and unsure of which way to turn. Then out of nowhere came a thought that pointed you toward clarity. You didn't force it. It simply landed. It brought peace. It made sense, even though your situation was still messy. That was God leading you step by step. Sometimes God's whispers come as warning, a quiet sense of, don't go there. Don't trust that. This path isn't right. You may not understand why, but you feel it strongly. Later, when truth unfolds, you realize God protected you long before the danger ever appeared. His whisper was your shield. Sometimes the whisper is inspiration, a new idea, a solution, a strategy, a vision, something fresh and creative that seems to come from beyond you. Inspiration is not random. It is one of God's languages. When He wants to open new doors or elevate your life, He often begins by planting a seed thought inside your mind. The idea becomes the bridge toward your next level. People often ask, but how do I know if it's God speaking or just me thinking? The answer is simple. Feel the nature of the thought. God's whispers align with peace, not panic. They align with truth, not deception. They align with growth, not destruction. They align with faith, not fear. They align with purpose, not impulse. God's thoughts build you, not break you, lift you, not drain you, strengthen you, not shame you. His voice doesn't argue, it doesn't shout, it doesn't pressure or manipulate. It gently invites you forward. It nudges you toward what is right. It whispers into your heart with a tone that is steady, calm, and sure. Even if the message challenges you, even if it asks you to grow, even if it pushes you to leave your comfort zone, it still carries peace. This is why cultivating stillness is important. Not silence on the outside, but silence on the inside. When your heart is overwhelmed, when your mind is crowded with fear, when your thoughts run endlessly, God's whisper becomes harder to recognize, not because he stops speaking, but because worry becomes louder than his voice. Life becomes noisy, stress becomes distracting, doubt becomes suffocating, and the whisper gets buried. But when you breathe deeply, quiet your spirit, and let your heart settle, God's voice rises again. It was always there. You simply created space to hear it. The truth is, God has been speaking to you far more than you realize. He has guided you more than you know. He has warned you more times than you counted. He has inspired you more deeply than you can imagine. His whispers have shaped your path even when you weren't aware of the source. And he will keep speaking, because your mind is one of his favorite places to meet you. Here is the expanded second key point in 800 words, with no subtitle and no conclusion, written in a deep, spiritual, motivational David Youngicho tone, without mentioning him. Your mind is not just a space where thoughts pass through. It is the very place where God plants the seeds of your future. Long before anything manifests in your life, it shows up first in your inner world. That is why the greatest transformations begin not with events, but with thoughts. When God wants to elevate you, he doesn't always start by changing your surroundings. He begins by changing your thinking. He places ideas in your mind that shift your direction. He deposits inspiration that leads you into your destiny. He plants convictions that move you away from danger and toward purpose. You don't always recognize these moments as divine, but they are. Think of your mind as fertile soil. God sows thoughts into that soil the way a gardener plants seeds. Some seeds grow instantly, a sudden burst of clarity that pushes you forward. Others grow slowly, a thought that keeps returning, gently nudging you in the same direction over time. Some seeds look like warnings, others look like dreams, some feel like peace, others feel like correction. But every seed God plants carries purpose. When God places a thought in your mind, it carries a different weight from a normal idea. It feels alive, it feels deep, it feels persistent. It stays when everything else fades. Sometimes it shows up when you're resting, driving, praying, or simply sitting quietly, and it feels like an inner knowing. You didn't create that thought. It simply arrived, filled with direction or clarity. That is God speaking through the spiritual channel of your mind. Many of the greatest breakthroughs in history started with a thought placed unexpectedly in someone's heart. God does not need a crowd to speak. He does not need noise or ceremony. He speaks in the secret place of your mind, because that is where decisions are born. That is where courage forms. That is where faith begins its journey. That is where your future starts to take shape long before your life shows any sign of change. The mind is where battles are fought and where victories are won. If the enemy wants to limit your life, he attacks your thinking. If fear wants to control you, it enters your mind first. If doubt wants to stop you, it attacks your thoughts. This is because whoever influences your mind influences your direction. God knows this, which is why he fills your mind with thoughts that lift, strengthen, and restore you. You may have experienced moments when you felt defeated, yet a thought suddenly rose inside you. You can rise again. That wasn't your strength. That was God stitching hope into your thinking. Or maybe you were confused about which path to take, and suddenly a simple idea came that made everything clear. That wasn't random clarity. That was God giving you vision. Sometimes all it takes is one divine thought to break years of confusion. God speaks through inspiration. You might wake up one morning with a new idea, a business concept, a creative solution, a strategy for your future, and it feels bigger than anything you would normally think of. Inspiration is often God's way of preparing you for opportunity. He plants the idea before he opens the door. If you pay attention, you'll notice that the idea arrives long before the opportunity exists. That is how God works. He builds your mind before he builds your environment. God also speaks through conviction. There are times when you're about to make a wrong choice, and something inside you whispers, "This is not right." You feel uncomfortable, unsettled. You can't explain it, but you sense it. That's God protecting you from what you cannot see. His conviction is not condemnation. It is guidance. It is his way of steering you toward what your future needs. Then there are moments when God gives you dreams, not just the dreams you see when you sleep, but the dreams that grow inside your thoughts. Those dreams stay with you. They inspire you. They challenge you. They refuse to die. You might try to ignore them, but they keep returning. That persistence is a sign of divine origin. God places dreams in your mind to pull you toward your destiny. Sometimes you think it's you who wants something bigger in life. You think you're the one aspiring for more purpose, more growth, more meaning. But often that desire didn't start with you. God placed it inside your mind so he could lead you into his plan. Your desires become the compass he uses to guide you. Your mind is where God pours wisdom. Wisdom doesn't always come through sermons, books, or teachers. Sometimes it comes as a sudden understanding that feels too deep to be your own. There are moments you suddenly get it, and the confusion that once clouded you disappears instantly. Where did that clarity come from? It was God illuminating your mind. God's thoughts carry alignment. His thoughts feel right, even when the situation still looks wrong. They bring confidence, even when nothing has changed. They carry peace, even when you're walking through uncertainty. When God speaks to your mind, you feel internally strengthened in a way that no external encouragement could achieve. The mind is the place where God writes the first draft of your future. Every idea, every whisper, every inner instruction is a brushstroke of his plan for your life. When you begin to recognize this, when you understand that your mind is not just psychological but spiritual, you stop dismissing your thoughts and start paying attention to the ones that carry God's tone. There is a unique quality to the thoughts that come from God. They bring peace, not confusion. They bring clarity, not chaos. They bring calmness, not pressure. When God speaks to your mind, his voice carries a signature, a spiritual fingerprint that you can identify if you pay attention. Many people struggle because they expect God's voice to be overwhelming, dramatic, or forceful. But in reality, God's voice is marked by gentleness, stability, and inner assurance. It doesn't shout to control you, it whispers to guide you. It doesn't create anxiety, it dissolves it. It doesn't push you, it leads you. When a thought enters your mind and brings instant peace, even if your situation is still difficult, that is often God speaking. When a direction comes to you and you feel calm about it, even though it may challenge you, That calmness is a sign of divine origin. Peace is not just an emotion, it is a confirmation. Confusion is not just a feeling, it is a warning. God's voice never creates confusion inside you because He is not the author of confusion. He does not lead you into fear, doubt, or anxiety. He leads you into strength, clarity, and alignment. Think about moments when you were overwhelmed, yet a quiet thought rose inside you saying, "It will be okay." Everything outside of you looked chaotic, but something inside of you felt steady. That steadiness didn't come from circumstances. It came from God. It was His voice cutting through the storm, anchoring you when everything else was shaking. This is how God speaks through your mind. His thoughts bring internal stability that is stronger than external instability. There are also moments when you face decisions and don't know what to choose. Your mind races with options. Your heart wrestles with uncertainty, but then a simple thought comes, gentle, clear, and peaceful. You don't feel pressured. You don't feel forced. You feel guided. That is God's voice leading you through your inner compass. His direction always brings a sense of rightness, even if you can't explain it. You just know. You feel alignment, as though your spirit and your mind suddenly agree. And this is one of the key ways you recognize God's voice. It produces agreement within you. Your emotions may still be afraid, your circumstances may still look unsteady, but your deeper self, the part of you connected to God, feels settled. Confusion divides you inside. God's voice unifies you. Confusion makes you feel torn between choices. God's voice brings you into unity with the truth. Confusion agitates. God's voice reassures. Confusion clouds. God's voice clarifies. There are times when God brings conviction into your mind. Conviction is not guilt. Conviction is not condemnation. Conviction is a gentle correction that redirects you. It says, "This is not the right path. This will hurt you. This isn't what I want for you." And even though conviction may be challenging, it still carries peace. Deep down, you feel relieved that the truth has surfaced. You may feel emotional tension, but inside your spirit, there is a sense of freedom. This is how you know a thought is from God. Even correction brings peace. When a thought comes from fear, it rushes you. When it comes from anxiety, it pressures you. When it comes from insecurity, it confuses you. But when a thought comes from God, it settles you. It gives you the strength to make decisions without fear. It helps you breathe again. It brings perspective. It lifts your head. It calms your nerves. It fills you with assurance, even when the road ahead is uncertain. Some people think that if a thought challenges them, it cannot be from God. But this is not true. God will ask you to grow. He will ask you to step out of comfort zones. He will ask you to leave certain environments, people, or habits behind. But even when the instruction is uncomfortable, the peace inside you remains. You may feel nervous but not tormented. You may feel stretched but not confused. You may feel challenged but not pressured. This is the nature of God's voice. It can challenge you without upsetting your inner peace. Another way to recognize God's voice is through consistency. God's whispers repeat themselves with gentle persistence. A thought comes again and again, not in an obsessive, anxious way, but in a calm, steady way. It returns to you in prayer, in quiet moments, in conversations, in reflections. It gently keeps rising. This consistent, peace-filled repetition is a sign that God is guiding you. Confusion, on the other hand, comes in bursts. It rushes in suddenly and fades suddenly, leaving you more uncertain than before. There are also times when God's voice comes as a sudden understanding, something you couldn't figure out, but suddenly you just get it. Confusion lifts, everything connects. The answer appears in your mind like light entering a dark room. That clarity is God speaking through revelation. His voice illuminates. It brings insight. It reveals what was hidden. It helps you see beyond the surface. God's voice aligns with His nature, loving, peaceful, wise, patient. If a thought destroys your confidence, it is not God. If a thought diminishes your worth, it is not God. If a thought makes you feel hopeless, condemned, or lost, it is not God. God's voice strengthens identity. God's voice affirms worth. God's voice inspires faith. God's voice lifts you above fear. God's voice reminds you who you are and who He is. The more you learn to recognize the peace in His voice, the easier it becomes to identify when He is speaking to your mind. His thoughts carry heaven's tone, gentle, reassuring, and full of truth. And when you begin to trust that tone, you will experience a deeper confidence in the direction God gives you, even when you can't see the outcome yet. In the end, the greatest gift God has given you is His willingness to speak to you personally, directly, and intimately. You are not wandering through life alone. You are not guessing your way through decisions. You are being guided by a God who speaks through your mind, your peace, your inner direction, and the quiet stirrings of your spirit. He is closer than the breath in your lungs, and more present than the thoughts in your head. His voice is not distant, it lives within you. His wisdom is not unreachable, it flows into you. His guidance is not hidden, it shines like a gentle light in the center of your soul. When you learn to recognize His thoughts, you begin to walk with a new confidence. Your steps become steady, your vision becomes clear, your heart becomes bold. You no longer panic when challenges rise because you know you have access to divine insight. You no longer drown in confusion because peace becomes your compass. You no longer fear the unknown because the one who knows all things whispers truth into your mind. God does not just speak to prophets, preachers, or the spiritually elite. He speaks to you. He speaks in moments of silence, in moments of prayer, in moments of reflection, and even in the chaos of daily life. His voice is not limited by your surroundings. It is carried by His love, and that love is always reaching for you, always guiding you, always reminding you that you are seen, known, and deeply valued. So walk forward with the assurance that you are not just living, you are being led. You are not just thinking, you are being guided. You are not just hoping, you are receiving heavenly insight. Open your heart, quiet your mind, lean into the peace within you, because God is speaking, and if you listen carefully, you will hear Him.